Hello there, friends. It's Jimmy Maverick. Welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Maverick Podcast, coming at you from Santa Fe, New Mexico. Today, we are going to be talking about the Week 6 waiver wire pickups, and I got some good names for you here, guys. You definitely should get on your team, as well as some streaming options for defenses. So let's go to it and do it right now.
Listen up. It's time for the Fantasy Maverick Podcast, starring the guy who's going to help you win that fantasy championship, Jimmy Maverick.
Hello there, friends. It's Jimmy Maverick. Welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Maverick Podcast. And today we are going to talk about the Week 6 waiver wire pickups. We do have some good names here, guys, you definitely need to be targeting for this week. And hey, but before I do that, if you could please give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, share this with your friends, and of course subscribe. All those things very much help me out with that YouTube algorithm and helps increase my exposure. So I do appreciate it. Thank you so much in advance for doing that. But let's just get right to it. Now, the first thing to know is that Week 6 is the first week of bye weeks. We got 4 teams on bye for Week 6. We've got the Falcons, the Saints, the Jets, and the Niners. Now, luckily, this doesn't have a huge fantasy impact. There's only like maybe 3 or 4 fantasy players that are going to be off this week. So it's not going to be as big of an impact as like Week 7, which is going to be the bye-pocalypse, because there's actually 6 really good fantasy teams that are going to be on bye in Week 7. But even so, now that bye weeks have started, you definitely want to check your waiver wire every Wednesday. After all the waivers have cleared, go onto the waiver wire and see who was dropped, because there could be some really good names that you can just pick up and you can just hold them on your roster for when they get off their bye week. So it happens every single year. I've managed to find really good pickups during the bye week, so that's definitely something you want to do. Now, the first thing, let's talk about quarterbacks. So quarterbacks look very thin for Week 6 if you're streaming them, and this is one of the reasons why it always makes me nervous to need to stream a quarterback. Now, luckily, there's no real startable quarterbacks that are going to be on bye this week, so it's not going to be much of an issue. But I would absolutely check to see if Sam Darnold is available in your league. He's currently 59% rostered, and although he had a real dud of a game this past week, that is atypical. He put together 4 really good games in a row. He had a dud week, but now if we look forward, he's got a good schedule going forward. He's got Minnesota, at the New York Giants, and at Atlanta over the next 3 weeks. He's also going to be getting CMC back, hopefully from his hamstring injury. That will absolutely improve his production in the game, and hopefully we'll see some more rushing touchdowns, which I knew was an unsustainable pace that he had through the first 4 weeks. So, but anyway, that is the name you should look for. Everyone else, I just could not get excited about any of the other waiver wire quarterbacks this next week. So that's kind of it for me as far as if I was going to pick one up. Let's move on to running backs. Now, there were a ton of key injuries among starting running backs this past week. Just devastating. And this is the thing, man, that you usually start seeing this stuff at around Week 5. So this is something that you want to be proactive on, and something that I really focused on when I was doing my drafts is picking up tons of handcuffs, and not necessarily my handcuffs. See, usually when people talk about handcuffs, they talk about cuffing your lead back, and how that can help your team. And really, if you do that, what you're going to do is you're going to slightly downgrade your team, which admittedly is better than a massive downgrade on your team, like what happened with my CMC teams when CMC went out. But if you grab other people's handcuffs, then when those players get injured, your team gets a massive upgrade. And I've had that in a couple of my leagues. There's one league I have right now and it's a large bench, so it's a 10-player bench. But I had Chuba Hubbard, I had Damian Williams, I have Daryl Williams, and so this team is super strong because even though I do have a couple players dealing with injury, I've got so many players coming in that are available, that are startable now because of injuries to the lead back. It's something that you want to do in your draft. But regardless, right now, we've got a bunch of handcuffs which are not very heavily owned in fantasy rosters, and you can pick them up. I got 4 names for you here, so let's just get right to it. First name is Davonte Booker, who's only 6% rostered right now. Of course, he is the backup to Saquon Barkley in New York. And we saw him get 16 touches and 4 targets in week 5. Wow, that's fantastic for fantasy football. That's a great volume play, and he should continue to see that volume going forward. Now, what's the drawback? Well, the drawback is that this team, this offense, has been devastated with injuries. Just this past week, besides Barkley, Daniel Jones, Kenny Golladay, Darius Slayton, Shepard. So we already had a huge number of starters out on this offense. And so that's obviously going to impact the effectiveness of this offense. And as a running back, that makes you very vulnerable to poor performances. I do very much like that he got 4 targets, though. And they also have a very difficult schedule coming up. They got the Rams in week 6, Carolina week 7, and at Kansas City week 8. It's just, there's no breaks for there's no breaks for for the Giants this year. It's just a bad situation. But I think he definitely needs to be rostered. And when we get into these bye weeks, this guy is a flex start. If you need him to cover for one of your running backs that's on bye week. The next one is Samaj P. Cincinnati. He's only 27% rostered. And this past week, we saw him share time with Mixon, who is dealing with an ankle injury. So, again, this is going to be an ongoing issue for Mixon. But P. Ryan actually out-snapped, he out-carried, and he out-targeted Mixon. Ended up with 11 touches and 5 targets, so he's over that 15 touches and targets threshold I like to have for running backs, so that's fantastic. And really, he was operating as kind of the lead back. Mixon did get that touchdown, which kind of saved his fantasy day. If he had not gotten that touchdown, he would have been horrendous for fantasy football. Just know that. So, anyway, he needs to be rostered. I'm not sure I would trust P. Ryan to start yet. But again, if you're in a bye week situation and he's on your bench and your lead running back is out, he might be a guy you need to plug in there. The next one, Alex Collins, Seattle, 37% rostered. Chris Carson dealing with a neck injury, which is very, very problematic. And I'm kind of surprised they haven't put him on injured reserve. Maybe that means that the severity of the neck injury is not that bad. So that's encouraging. But as long as Carson is out, I think Alex Collins is startable. He had 15 touches and 3 targets this past week, so that was great. The upcoming schedule isn't great for running backs. They have at Pittsburgh, New Orleans, and then Jacksonville. Jacksonville's fine. But Pittsburgh and New Orleans have pretty good run defenses. So, again, he's a desperation start, but he needs to be on your roster if you can get him. Now, by far, this last guy here would be my number 1 target for your waivers this week. So, but Daryl Williams of the Kansas City Chiefs. We've got Clyde Edwards-Helaire going out with a knee injury, and as of the time I'm recording this, we don't have any idea how severe that knee injury is, how long he'll be out, but it looks like it will be out for an extended period of time. So anyway, as long as that's the case, Williams needs to be on your roster because he is startable. Now, last week he only got 5 carries and 5 targets this past week. But you've got to understand that was only for a partial game. CH went out mid-game. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had I want to say 11 touches before he went out and at least a target. So if that all moves to Daryl Williams, we've got a really good amount of volume there. And you know what? He has been generally pretty effective in this offense. So you've got that. The next 3 weeks. Okay, so upcoming schedule for Daryl Williams, very favorable. I really like these lineups. We've got Washington, at Tennessee, and the New York Giants at home. So Daryl Williams, immediate starter, starting next week for however long CEH is out. So there you go with that. Let's move on to the wide receivers, and obviously the wide receiver that everybody's going to be talking about this week and everybody's going to be trying to get is Kedarius Tony. He's only 17% rostered. I expect that to move up to 100% rostered after what he did. Just fantastic, but again, just like Davonte Booker, last man standing on this offense with all the other injuries, so he certainly benefited from that. As these other players come back from injury, like I don't know how severe Galladay's injury is, but I would expect him to be back pretty quickly. Shepard has already been out for a few weeks, so he should be coming back soon. You know, none of these guys were placed on injured reserve, so I would expect them to return. As that happens, you know, we could see a dip in volume, but obviously the volume was outstanding. And again, he's kind of like the best player on a bad offense right now. He's going to get the volume, and over the next 3 weeks, man, I got to tell you, the Giants just no breaks on their schedule. Again, as I said earlier, it's the Rams next week, Carolina the week after, at Kansas City the week after. So he's a guy that I guess I would bench. I would play him the same way I would play Brandon Cooks, who, although has not been great the past couple of weeks, was getting the most volume on that offense. But that's the kind of player that I would view him as going forward. The opportunities for this offense are going to be very limited, and that's where you're at. Now, another guy who is only 30% rostered is Marquez Callaway, who had a great week, got 8 targets, so that is fantastic. Of course, they have the bye week this week, and then afterwards they've got at Seattle, Tampa Bay, and Atlanta. So we've got pretty good matchups here going forward. The big issue with Callaway is, when is Michael Thomas coming back? And I haven't been able to find any information as to when they think he's going to return. Some people think it's going to be after this bye week, so week 7, but maybe it's going to be another week or two after that. I actually have him rostered on a couple of my benches right now as far as Michael Thomas, so I'm hoping it comes back sooner than that. But for Marquez Callaway, I think as long as Michael Thomas is out, he is going to be the lead receiver on this team, which is, again, devastated with injuries. There was and there's not a lot of offensive firepower right now, so he's a volume play, and I think he should still be decent coming back from the bye week. Also, one other thing to note is that part of Marquez's big day, obviously he got 2 touchdowns, but one of those was a Hail Mary. You can't count on Hail Marys, If he hadn't gotten that, it wouldn't have been quite as explosive a week for him. But anyway, I think, he definitely needs to be rostered, definitely needs to be on your bench if you can get him. I also like Tim Patrick, who's only 31% rostered. He's getting marginal fantasy volume right now. Okay. So he up to this point has been getting like 5 or 6 targets a week. Went to 9 targets on week 5. So that's what everybody's going to see. I still think going forward, I think a 5 to 6 target a week is about what you would expect, which makes him a bench play, but also makes him someone that you could put into your flex on a bye week. So I think he definitely needs to be on your roster. Their schedule over the next 3 weeks, not too bad. Las Vegas, at Cleveland, and then Washington at home. So it's not a terrible lineup for receivers. We'll just have to see what happens, but I think that he is a good choice to pick up as well. My number one pickup, though, more than all these guys, I mean, obviously Kedarius Tony, I think, is probably going to be the number one. But if I was to really go after somebody this week, and someone that I think I could get pretty easily, depending on where you are on the waiver priority, but Amon-Ra St. Brown of the Detroit Lions is currently 0% rostered, so he's available in every league. He has gotten 8 targets in each of the past 2 weeks. That utilization is fantastic. So I really want to get him onto my bench. And again, a great bye week starter, someone that can fill in during the bye weeks. Brown was helped by the fact that there was an injury to Quez Watkins, so that should help his utilization stay pretty high. And I did not get Detroit's next 3 games. I'm sorry, I didn't get that. So give me 1 second here. All right, so Detroit's scheduled for the next 3 weeks: Cincinnati at home, at the LA Rams, and then Philly at home. So there you go with that. Let's move on to tight ends. I only have one tight end to recommend this week for pickup. That would be Ricky Seals-Jones, who is on the Washington football team. Obviously, the injury to Logan Thomas has opened up that volume to Seals-Jones to get a much larger share of this offense. He got 8 targets in week 5, and it could be a few weeks before Logan Thomas returns, because he's dealing with a hamstring injury. So those tend to be a little bit longer term. And as long as Logan Thomas is out, I think Ricky Seals-Jones is a starter with that sort of volume. That's fantastic volume for a tight end. Again, with tight ends, I usually only look for 6 targets a week, or even like 5 targets a week if I'm really desperate. So that's definitely much better. Finally, let's talk about defensive streamers. We got a couple for this week, and the first one is Indianapolis, who's only 45% rostered right now. Week 6, they get to play Houston at home. So again, I know that Houston looked good against the Patriots this week, which was very surprising. Even saying that, Patriots defense did fine this past week. I think they got like 6 fantasy points, and I do think that Indianapolis is a good defense generally, but against a bad offense, the opportunity is there. They are the top projected point getter for fantasy football defenses this next week. So if you're streaming, I would go pick them up. And then I also like Green Bay, who's only 25% rostered, and they get Chicago for week 6. And obviously, man, Justin Fields not looking great, not really producing. They've got, their lead running back, Montgomery, is out. They can't seem to get anything going with the receivers, with Allen Robinson. So, this just seems to be like they are going to be a top 5 defense for the upcoming week. So if you're streaming your defenses, those are the 2 guys I would go after. So that's it. So there you go. So those are my week 6 waiver wire targets. I will be back on probably Wednesday to talk about the matchups and the starts and sits. So we will get to that there. If you have any questions about these players or any others, like should you drop this player or should you pick up this guy, please leave it in the comments down below. I do appreciate it. And again, if you haven't done so already, hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button. I do appreciate it. Thank you very much for watching, and we will talk to you soon.